We've got a great returning guest, Deanna Ross, who talked about growing up in Scientology in Las Vegas and also at St. Hill Manor in England on our first interview with her. Well, we continue with more stories about life in Scientology in England with Janis and Deanna reminiscing about those times. And then also on the Scientology Sea Organization ship, the Royal Scotsman, which later became the Apollo. And you're going to hear some heartbreaking stories about disconnection and being thrown overboard. I think you'll find this video informative, and we hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned. Hello, welcome to our channel, Scientology Peeling the Onion. My name's Mark Fisher. I'm here with my co-host, Janis Gillum Grady. Good day, Janis.
Good day, Mark. Good day, everybody. I hope everyone's having a good day.
Yeah, how you been lately?
I've been good. Yep. The weather's getting nicer. I was out this morning. Yep.
It's warm
what
enough.
What about you, Mark?
Hawaiian shirt again. I'm warm enough. I can wear a Hawaiian shirt again today.
Better.
Yeah, I was going to tell you, last night I went here in Las Vegas, and I'm going to show a picture. I went and saw an old friend of mine and business acquaintance of mine who I haven't seen since 2007, 2008. But I'll put the picture up and then I'll tell the story real quickly. This is Al Bernstein, and he is a famous sportscaster for many years on ESPN and then Showtime, doing boxing. He's a Hall of Fame boxing analyst and announcer, and he's done all the famous fights in the 80s with Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler and Mike Tyson and you name it. And anyway, he had a radio show. He lives here in Las Vegas. He had a radio show on ESPN radio back in the early 2000s when I was a mortgage broker. And I used to listen to his talk show every afternoon. I ran into him one day at a coffee shop just around the corner, and I just complimented him on the show. And then he's really nice. He asked what I did. I said, I have mortgage business and all that. He goes, oh, well, let's get together for lunch. I want to talk to you about something. And basically what happened was I started advertising on his radio show, and I did for about 4 or 5 years on his radio show, and we did little 30-second ads and put them on, and I got a lot of business back in those days from those ads, and we became good friends. So anyway, around 2006, 2007, when the ex-Scientology message board started up by Mick Wenlock, there was a little reunion here in Las Vegas that Mick hosted, and I was here for it too, and I took a bunch of people out to dinner. Anyway, Scientology, OSA, their plant, they had a spy on me named Ferris Khan. They decided that they wanted to shut me up and shut up everybody. So they did a little program to take me out, and I've talked about that on other videos, to fair game me, basically. And they contacted my boss at the time at the mortgage company I was at. And he called me up and said, what is this all about? And then I said, oh, he didn't know anything about Scientology. So I told him, oh, Scientology, and they're coming after me because I'm speaking out. Oh, okay. So I immediately called Al Bernstein. This is him here, because I figured, you know what, they're probably going to try. Scientology's going to probably try and call him and tell them bad things about me. So I called up Al and I told him what happened. And he said, oh, okay. Yeah, no, they haven't called yet, but if they do, I'll take care of it. About a half an hour later, he calls me and says, oh, yeah, they called me. And he goes, you know what I told him? I told him to F off, and hung up on him. So anyway, Al was great. And then he left ESPN and went to Showtime, and he didn't have his radio show anymore. So around 2007, I stopped doing advertising with him. And then I kind of lost touch until about a couple of weeks ago on Facebook and also on TikTok. We reconnected, and he invited me to, he is also a lounge singer, even though he's also, the boxing analyst. And so he was appearing at the Tuscany Hotel here in Las Vegas on Flamingo Boulevard. And he does it every so often. He asked me if I would come. So I did. And he's got like a full band, and he sings songs and he tells trivia. And it was great. And it was full of boxing legends and different people. So I had a really good time last night reconnecting with Al Bernstein. And that was kind of my little fun story for last night.
Oh, that's really good. I know it's always fun running into old friends and reconnecting with them.
Absolutely. And he's a great guy, and he's very famous in the sports world. A lot of guys will know who he is, and he's still going strong. There's a boxing match this weekend at T-Mobile Arena. He's going to be announcing it and stuff. So anyway, that's my little story.
Well, good.
So why don't you go ahead and tell everybody who we've got here today.
Well, we've got Deanna Ross is back with us, but we did one with her, and we talked about the ship, and we talked about Las Vegas and Reno because her parents ran the mission there, and Alan and Virginia Capular. And we also, had some photos of St. Hill. Well, I pulled out some photos of St. Hill and a few ship ones as well. So we're going to kind of go back a little in time that we already covered to show some more photos, and then go back through Las Vegas and then get to the ship days. Because I know there's people waiting to find out, what did she do to get thrown overboard?
Okay.
And to get assigned to the chain locker. We got to find that out. So let's bring Deanna on.
Hey, Deanna, how you doing today?
Great. How are you two?
Oh, doing great.
All right.
Hey, listen, your show was really popular, the last one that we did. And one of the questions that was asked in the comments is, what is that board that's right behind your head? So you want to answer that question?
Well, we're big fans of The Good Place on Netflix. And that says, Holy Mother Forking Shirt Balls. In The Good Place, you can't swear. So that's
is that what they do?
Yep.
Yeah, that stars Ted Danson, and I forget the female actors. Yeah, Kristen Bell. Yeah. It's a comedy.
I'll have to check it out. I've not seen it.
It's really funny. Yeah. We're watching it for like the third time. So.
Well, one thing I was going to tell you, Deanna, since we did our show, you told me that your parents' mission or whatever here in Las Vegas was at 300 East St. Louis.
Yeah.
In Las Vegas in town. So I wonder where. You said it's not there anymore. So I went, I wonder where it is. So I drove over there, and it is a Carl's Jr. And it's been a Carl's Jr. for as long as I have been here in Las Vegas, since 1990.
Wow.
This is 300 East St. Louis, right at Las Vegas Boulevard, across from the Stratosphere Hotel. And then before that, it was Bob Stupak's Vegas World. And it's been a Carl's Jr., like I said, for about 35 years since I've been there. As a matter of fact, I spent the millennial, when it changed from 1999 to 2000, right across from that parking lot, because I was looking up at the Stratosphere Tower for the fireworks. So that's where your old mission was. It's Carl's Jr.
The original building was pretty old. It was kind of that Nevada ranch style brick, cinder brick house. And it was probably built in the 40s. So.
And I did drive down Santa Paula, right? Is that where you said you lived?
Right.
And there are a bunch of old apartments and houses or whatever along there, and they're still there.
Oh, okay. My old home is still there.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead, Janice. Where do you guys want to get started?
Yeah. So let's go back to, where were we? We were talking.
St. Hill?
No, we should go back to Vegas because we have the photos of Nikki and Frankie's wedding.
All right, I'll find that real quick.
Yeah.
Go ahead, keep talking.
Anyway, so we're bringing this up because Frankie Friedman and Nikki, they were key Sea Org members, key players.
Nikki Merwin, Nikki Friedman, Mary Sue's best friend and communicator for many years.
Right. Actually, Nikki, when she joined the Sea Org, she was on the Avon River in 67. I met her in 68, and she transferred over to the Royal Scotsman from the Avon and was the Mimeo typist. And where Mimeo was located on the ship, it was in the lower deck. And if you walk by to go to the steward quarters, there was a hole in the bulkhead into the room where Nikki would sit and type. And I used to go, Nikki would sit there and her foot would be tapping while she's typing. And I used to speak into that little hole and go, don't squish me, Nikki, don't squish me. And she'd be looking around, where's that coming from?
That's funny. When I got there, Nancy Tidman was the mimeotypist.
Right, because Nikki by that time moved up to be Mary Sue's communicator.
Right. So after I'd get finished washing dishes at 3:00 in the morning, I would go in and she'd be typing up the orders of the day and all that good stuff. And we were similar in age. I think she was a little bit older, but that was my unwinding time before going to bed.
Was going to Mimeo?
Yep. And talk with Nancy.
Right. And they'd have the music blasting out.
Yep.
So why don't you say who's in the picture, left to right?
Oh, okay. So left to right. Starting left is George Roberts. And I want to say he was from the mission in Austin. I think. Then that's my mom, Virginia Capular. Then Frank Friedman and his new bride, Nikki Friedman. And then that's my stepdad, Alan Capular.
Right. And your mom, Virginia, and Alan had the Las Vegas mission and then the Reno mission. And I know they were on the Class 8 course with my mother on the Royal Scotsman, which we will cover a little later on. And then Frankie, when I arrived on the ship, he was also early Sea Org from 67. And he is actually the missionaire who found the Fort Harrison. He was on the mission and set up Southern Land Development and was the front man for all that, for setting up the whole Clearwater base when we moved from ship to shore.
Who knew?
Yep.
That's Frankie right there in the Sea Org uniform.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. So that kind of fills in why we bring up Nikki and Frankie, and because they were important players in the early Sea Org days. And now we can go to St. Hill. Okay, and Mark's just going through the photos to pull that up, and we'll do an establishment shot of St. Hill Manor there. So that's St. Hill Manor in England, in East Grinstead, and that's where Hubbard lived with Mary Sue, his wife, and 4 children. Diana, the oldest, Quentin, Suzette, and Arthur. And this is where Hubbard lived when he did the St. Hill Special Briefing course, which was teaching people to audit, or they were already trained auditors, so he was trying to perfect them as auditors. And he did a lot of lectures here, which was referred to later on as the wall of tapes on the St. Hill Special Briefing course. And every night he would come out and he would lecture. And he also personally supervised the students. There's a picture here of, let me see if I can quickly find it. Oops. I got to bring this down. Yeah, the one with him, with my mother.
Yeah, I got
there. It. Yeah, so this was 1962. That's L. Ron Hubbard with Jane Kember, who later became the Guardian and went to prison for the break-ins by the Guardian's office, which is a whole nother story after the FBI raid. And on the left there in the coat with her back to the camera, that's my mother. And that's Hubbard basically getting them to do certain TRs, training routines. And that was in, I believe that's the pavilion.
Yeah, that's why I showed this picture. Is it because we were talking about this on the other show? Hold on. Sorry, I messed up. This here, is that the pavilion there with the white roof, or that's a solarium, right? We went over this the other day.
Yeah. Well, I always thought that the pavilion was that one with the curved windows. That's what I've always thought. Okay,
maybe it was. I don't know. So that's what I'm saying. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I've always thought it was.
See, in my memory is the chapel and everything was to the left, out of frame in the picture. No?
Yeah.
With the wishing well. With the wishing well,
yes.
Deanna.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, the chapel was there. But the chapel, wasn't that only built around that time period?
Yeah, but wasn't there it seems like there was another building.
There was
along there too. There was
on
like
on the other side. You go if you walk in St. Hill to go up to the castle. You got the garages on the right and the canteen. But then on the left, you'll come to the chapel, and then there's that whole nother building which had reception and qual. And qual was built in a big square with offices around it, and then in the middle was like a course room or cramming.
Janice, is this the chapel here?
And that's the chapel with the wishing well. Yes.
So what's the building at the back of the picture here?
That's the manor. That's the manor.
Okay.
Yeah. So that the pavilion was off the manor.
Okay.
Yeah. So
here's a better picture of the chapel.
Yeah. And I mentioned we were talking to Barry Stevenson the other day, and we showed this picture or a similar picture because there's pictures of people all crowded at these windows, just piled, trying to listen to Hubbard giving his lectures. And people got married in the chapel there, and babies got christened there. And students would put money in that wishing well. I don't know if they made wishes, but they definitely put money in there. And I was telling how Quentin and I and other kids Quentin would climb in there and collect the money, and we'd all then go to the canteen and spend it.
Scientology got their money one way or another.
Yeah, that's right. The canteen was run by Herbie Parkhouse and David Gaiman. Yeah. They made a big bucks on that.
Oh, really? It didn't go to Scientology?
No, it went to them.
Huh. Yeah. Like the canteen on the ship where that money did go there, right?
Well, I don't know what happened to that money. I know you paid us 10%. And then the rest, I thought, kind of went to, well, only when we worked there did you pay us 10%. But the rest went to replenishing it.
Yeah.
And buying new things.
Yeah, I have a story about that when we get to it.
Okay.
Now, this is Janice. She was describe this photo.
Yeah, this photo here is students at St. Hill in the 60s. This is what they were on course in the castle, which is in this picture. It's to the left, behind them to the left. And they're on break, and they're walking down to go to the canteen on break. But you can see the old cars there. That's probably that car on the right. That's kind of like what my mother's car looked like. That my brother used to have to hand crank to get it started. As soon as my dad arrived in England and found she had this car, he's like, I won't be seen dead in this. And he went out and got a Morris Minor. But yeah. So anyway, so here we are at St. Hill. Oh, there's a picture there, Mark.
Which one?
We talked in the last interview about Debbie Blundell and Julie Blundell. And this picture here is in the middle there is Leslie Blundell. She was the older sister that, Deanna, you never knew her, and I'll tell you why.
Oh.
When the Blundells came to the ship in 1968, around the same time as me, I grew up with Leslie and Debbie and Julie. And Leslie was probably about 17 when we went on the ship, and she hated it. And she they were going to assign it to the chain locker, and she went and she hid under a bed for like 12 hours.
Oh, my Lord.
And she wasn't even 18 yet, and she ended up blowing the ship. And she got some locals to kind of get her away from the ship, and ended up living in Greece for a couple of years as a nanny while she was trying to make money to get back to Australia. And her older brother was in Vietnam at the time. And then finally, when he got back from Vietnam, she was able to go and stay with him. But her parents remained in the Sea Org.
I was just going to say, what did Bet and Bill do? I mean,
well, later Bill ended up in Denmark and married.
I think we all went to Denmark off the ship. Did he stay? Did Bet go to LA?
Bet went to Denmark, but then she ended up in Los Angeles because I have a photo of her when my mom had Celebrity Center going. I think it was like around 1969. There's a photo of her, and Bet is standing right next to her.
Yeah, I remember that photo. Yeah.
Yeah. So
where were the kids at that time? If Bet was in LA and Bill was in Denmark.
Debbie was in Denmark because she remained there for years and ended up marrying a Swede, and now she's in Los Angeles. Lawson is her married name. Right. So yes, they're in Los Angeles and they're still in Scientology.
I know.
Leslie is back in Australia and has remained there ever since, and she's done well. And then Julie. Well, before I get on to Julie, let me just point out here to some people. The lower left there, that's Rebecca Jessup. She's the younger sister of Amos and Nate Jessup. And she came to the ship later on and married Mike Goldstein from Denver. And then the man hugging her, that's Chris Spear. And many people who watch us will know Chris. Chris was an auditor. He was on the ship with us, and he was a missionary. He's pretty well known. And I don't know the other people. So, okay, so Julie. Julie is in a photograph here of Hubbard and your ex-brother-in-law, Ron Pook, or as we called him, Pookie. So let me...
I didn't, Janice, I didn't put in the... I only have the one where she's been taken out.
Oh, okay.
I didn't have time.
Oh. Okay. Well, there's Pookie, who is the captain with Hubbard. And in the original picture is a photo of a young girl with a hat on with no bill. And because that was the hat the messengers wore. It's like a little sailor hat. And Julie was a messenger with me at the time. And they photoshopped her out of this photo. Scientology did. And there's a photo where she's actually got a black eye, and someone was saying, oh, the poor child was abused, but she did it to herself. It wasn't that anyone punched her or, something like that.
So Ron wasn't captain for very much longer in that picture, right? Didn't he get demoted and was it Bill Robertson that went in? I don't remember the order, but Ron wasn't there very long.
Well, Pookie originally, when I was on the ship, Pookie was on the Enchanter.
Right.
And he got busted from the Enchanter, and he was actually assigned a condition of enemy. Confusion was not even a condition yet in treason. It was enemy. And Pookie was assigned to scrape and varnish the bridge. And no one was allowed to talk to him. And Annie and I, I'm an 11-year-old, this is a nice man. How could he be treated this way? Annie and I would go to our meal times, and we would sneak extra food, and we would go up to the bridge and feed Pookie. This is two 11-year-olds. Well, no, she was 12 at the time. So yeah, we were feed Pookie, and I remember him. Oh, he appreciated so much, and we'd go get him water, and he was just there with no one to talk to while he scraped and revarnished the whole bridge. And this was for some issue with the Enchanter.
And that was that's before what I just mentioned, where he was captain of the Royal Scotsman, and he got booted and put into liability or whatever. Was it Hannah that took over? I don't remember. It was either Bill Robertson or Hannah took over.
Probably Bill Robertson. Yeah. I don't remember Hannah ever being the captain of the Apollo or the Scotsman. She was the captain of the Avon River.
Okay. Are you sure she wasn't ever?
I'll I'll have to ask.
We'll have to ask Hannah because I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, I'll ask her.
Too long ago, too, right?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now we're up here on the Scotman. Here's a great photo that we talked about last time, but I didn't have the photo. So here it is. The woman standing up saluting in the lighter shirt is Peaches Pook. She was married to Ron Pook, your sister.
Yes. That's
and is she still Scientologist now, or what? I'm sorry, Janice.
Yeah, she's OTH. She lives in Clearwater. She talks to my brother. I have a half brother that she's in touch with, but she won't talk to me. So I've tried.
Okay. And then Pookie, last I heard on him, he was sailing the Seattle Sound.
You know, I think I may have told you that. I kind of started looking for him, probably around 2010. And I just Googled his name, and up came a picture of him on a little yacht. And it said Seattle Mariners Club or something like that. And that's about all I knew. And then he kind of, I haven't found that picture again on the internet, so I don't know if he scrubbed it off or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, let me talk more about this photo. Deanna, you're hiding bottom left.
I am right behind Belkacem.
Yeah, and the gentleman in the bottom left sitting is Belkacem, who has been a guest of ours before.
Oh, I missed it.
Oh, we did what, 3 or 4 interviews with him? Four interviews. He lives in Morocco now.
Oh,
and
wow.
So when I went on a cruise last year, I actually got to spend some time with him because we sailed to Agadir. So he came and met me at the port with a friend of his who does tours, and I spent the whole day with him, just going around Agadir and remembering old times. But yeah, so that he lives there now, and he's in his 70s, and you got to go watch those because he tells some great stories.
I'll have to.
Oh, he's very funny.
Stowing away on the Scotman when we left
with Dick Laddie, right? Wasn't Dick Laddie involved in that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Captain, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So next, there's Belkacem right there, and above him, I didn't realize who that was, Deanna, until you pointed it out to me that was Lisa O'Crackle. And when I was doing research for my book, for book 1, I was going through the old OODs, Orders of the Day, and LRH had written a thing about Lisa O'Crackle having blown. And I now remember, and then I remembered, oh yeah, I remember hearing her name as a kid, and she'd blown, and I didn't know what blow meant, and that she had created some shore flap. And you just reminded me she'd gone to the U.S. Embassy.
Yeah. I think she just fled in the middle of the night, just took off. She was done. She was the cook.
Oh, okay.
Do you remember that? No, and she had such little to work with, and she was a really good cook. She's Polynesian. Just wonderful food, but she had such a little budget, and then she was just so overworked that she said, I ain't doing this anymore, and she was out of there. I mean, in the middle of the night, gone.
Right. Well, I don't blame her. I was in that galley washing dishes, standing on a crate, at 11 years old.
Oh, those times.
But by the time this photo was taken, I was a Commodore's messenger.
Yes, you were. You were a Commodore's messenger when I came on board. I would shake in my boots when you would come along, and Nancy or Annie was okay. We were kind of buds, but you and Claire and Sharon. Was Sharon?
That's Sharon. Yeah, Sharon was at the time. Yeah.
Or wasn't Claire?
Yeah, it was Sharon. Terry hadn't yet become a messenger. She was in the engine room. Well,
Right.
she'd been a nanny, and then she was in the engine room.
We have to work our way up.
Yeah, so she was probably a nanny at 13 years old before you came and replaced her.
Always fresh replacements.
Yeah.
Point out the people in the picture, because you're in these pictures, right?
That's what I'm going to do here. Yeah. So in this picture, in the front row is Annie Tidman, who later became Annie Broker. And some people might know her as Annie Rush when she was married to Charlie Rush. But Annie was a messenger with me. And then Sharon Stainforth. And Sharon was actually at St. Hill when I was there on the children's comm course, communications course, and the children's Dianetic course with me. And then that's me on the right in the front. And then behind us, I pointed out earlier, the light shirt is Peaches Pook, who is Deanna's sister. And then partly covered up, that's Nikki Freeman that we've talked about already. And next to her is Dave Murphy, who was the chief engineer. At this time, I don't think he was the chief engineer. Larry McLarty or someone like that was probably the chief engineer at this time period.
Guy. Really nice guy.
Yeah. And then Norman Starkey, he was probably the first or second mate at this time. He later became the captain, and then he was the LRH trustee of LRH's estate. And what we found out, he passed away, Mark, 2019, apparently, of cancer. And then Deanna pointed out to me in the front right at the bottom, that's the back of Brian Livingston.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And Brian...
he was CS1?
One. So he was over all the HCO divisions.
Right.
And he was over... He was over all personnel. And Hannah, when she was the captain of the Avon River, I don't know if you were there when this happened. We were in Corfu. But her execs kept being ripped off and moved to other places. And she was very upset about it because she was being undermined. So she put a plan together and she invited Brian over for dinner. And so Brian goes over to have dinner with his old friend Hannah, because he'd been on the Avon River with her as an executive. And she basically kidnapped him. And when we get Hannah on the show, I'll have her tell the whole story.
Yeah.
But the Scotsman was searched for hours, and it was decided Brian must have blown because no one could find him. So it was like, right. Commodore Staff Aide number 1 has blown, so that was like a big flap. But meanwhile, he's tied up in the lower decks of the Avon River.
All the shenanigans.
Janice, tell everybody what you guys are doing in this picture and who's there, that we don't see.
Well, who we don't see. I mean, Hubbard is there, where if you look at the picture, you can see we're looking off to the side, and that would be where Hubbard would have been sitting. And it was a Christmas performance put on by us. Every year, the crew would put together little shows and songs and dances and skits and stuff like that at Christmas time and put them on for all the crew and for Hubbard to watch. Because he used to come down for every party we had. He'd come down and that, have his tab, which is like a Coca-Cola, set up for him. And crew could come up and just talk with him, and Mary Sue and Diana would sit with them or other family members. But yeah, every party we had, he always came down and participated in that. So this would have been us singing some made up song to him. You can tell we don't even know the words.
This was 1968.
Yeah, Christmas 68 in Corfu.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. So, I pulled this up because we talked about Las Vegas, and this is my mother talking to Bob Harvey. Bob Harvey was from Las Vegas org. So after your parents left the Las Vegas mission, it had to have become a Class 4 org. And Bob Harvey was the one who was running that org. And I remember when he came to the ship, he actually was posted there for a short period while he was doing his training on the Flag Executive Briefing course. And because he was running HCO for a while, and then he had to go back to Las Vegas because they were
in LA. Where was the briefing course held? Was that on Temple?
Yes, at ASHO. At
ASHO?
the advanced, yeah, the American Saint Hill organization.
Right.
Yeah, but he did the Flag Executive Briefing course, which was, you did the org executive course, which was admin training, and then the FEBC was further admin training, and we had, every org had to send 2 people to Flag for training, and Bob was one of them that came in from Las Vegas org.
So where was this picture taken?
This was taken at Celebrity Center.
Okay.
I believe this was when my mom had just opened it and was doing a big grand opening event. And
Okay.
Bob was there for it.
You mean Celebrity
Center?
Vegas?
Yes.
In Las Vegas or?
No, LA.
Okay.
This was on 8th Street.
So there was a picture you showed in one of your streams about champagne being poured. Do you remember that? Your mom's in it.
Yes. And that would have been the same event.
So in that picture, you didn't know who a person was in there? That was Alan Capular.
Oh.
Okay. Make a note.
Okay. So yeah, I'll pull that picture up and note it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, here's a picture right there in the very middle. That is Sharon Stainforth, who later becomes a messenger with me. And this was in this is at St. Hill, and this would have been in 1967, before we all ended up in the Sea Org. But behind her, in the back middle, some people will know her, ex-Sea Org members will know her, but that's Chris Reppin, or she was known as Chris Juss, married to Gene Juss, who was on the ship, he was the cook. And then when we moved ashore to Clearwater, he was the accommodations reg for the Flag land base. Right.
Yeah, I used to deal with them all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's Chris Juss, Chris Reppin, her brother, Mike Reppin, who is one of our viewers, and his mother was Claire Reppin, who was one of the Knots auditors at Flag for a lot of years, and then she eventually died of cancer after going through terrible mistreatment and no medical care. It was a disaster on how she was treated.
Too. Yeah,
the typical, they're down stat, ignore them, type of treatment. So that was very sad. How Claire, after all those dedication,
is Chris still around?
No, Claire passed. Chris is still around, the daughter, and does not talk to her brother because Chris is still in good standing. So this is all part of the disconnection. Mike was a good kid, and he comes to my events, and I stay in touch with him. Yeah. But now, Deanna, can you explain these pictures from Corfu?
That's Debbie Blundell. She was a fun sidekick. So when we did get Liberty, because you were either on port Liberty or starboard Liberty, right? Mm-hmm. And you were the whole ship was divided in half. You were on the starboard or you were on the port, vice versa. So we happened to be on Liberty together, but we had to get, I think, an adult to go with us, and that would have been Bert Rousseau, and he brought along his son David. So it was the 4 of us that would go on Liberty into Corfu, and we took, since I was oldest, I got to rent the bike, the little motorbike, and so Debbie would ride on the back with me. And then, of course, Bert and David would take their own little moped around.
Is that Bert and David there?
Yes. I'm pretty sure that's the picture I have anyway. Yeah. So
yeah, that does look like David Rousseau.
Good. I just knew him as that person. I didn't know him later. So yeah. So the picture of Debbie is she really wanted to drive the scooter, but she was too young. So she was pretending to drive the scooter, and I.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think we were on, what was the where the monastery, was it a monastery at the top?
No, the fort. That was the new fort. And here's a funny story. When I went back there 2 years ago, I kept remembering the fort was on the right, and we would go up that hill to the fort. And
Yes.
then when I got in Corfu, I went down to the dock and I'm like, wait a minute, why is the fort to the left? How can you move a whole old fort built in the 1500s? And I couldn't, and I'd look at the dock and I'm like, it's the same shape, it's the same L shape and everything. And I'd ask people, was the dock moved?
Right.
And because where it should have been, there was no dock. And everyone's like, no, the dock's always been down there and the fort's always been to the left. I'm like, I'm not going nuts. It was always to the right. I finally found someone who remembered the old dock on the left side of the fort. And in 1971 or something like that, so just after we left, they tore that old dock down, having built a new dock on the other side of the fort. It's mystery solved. I wasn't going nuts.
The picture I just showed you, I don't know if that was the fort, because as I recall, we took a pretty long drive out of town.
Yeah.
And I want to say it was like a monastery.
Oh, there is a monastery back on the other side of the island.
That picture right there, the ocean, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. That picture right there was looking out towards the ocean from that spot where Debbie was so we're kind of high up.
Right.
Yeah.
But
so
there is a monastery up there further back on the island, about halfway back. There's a monastery up there because I went and saw it just a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you were right.
Those are some old pictures.
Talking about Bert and David Rousseau, Bert is now 90 years old.
Wow.
He calls me 4 times a year. Usually he'll call me just to say hi, and so that we know that he's still alive. He's down in South Africa. But David grew up with me on the ship, and he became a Commodore's messenger, and he ended up marrying Claire.
Oh.
And Claire had first been married to Mike Maurer, who's still a Scientologist. And then she married David, and they were messengers together. And David was a very good friend. And later on, he actually was in Los Angeles, and he was at nighttime walking on Hollywood Boulevard, I guess going between buildings, and he got shot. And he was shot on Hollywood Boulevard, but he survived it. He ended up dying a few years later from brain cancer. But again, we have a problem where Scientology forces disconnection, and Bert, having left the Sea Org, was living in South Africa. His son dies. Does anyone call him and let him know? No. I find out. So on one of his calls to me, when he's asking any update on David, I'm like, okay, it's up to me now to give him the bad news that his son is dead. And so then Bert tries to call Debbie Rousseau, David's later wife, who used to be Debbie Hubbard, married to Alan Hubbard. Debbie refused to talk to Bert. But only when she finally left the Sea Org did she call and she apologized to Bert for having treated him like that when he was trying to get information about his son's death and how he passed away. But it's just a sad situation with all this disconnection and giving no value to family connections,
Yeah.
So
they did the same thing to me. They did the same thing to my family when my sister died. I found out on Facebook 6 months later, and I had to tell my mother. It's just sad. That's how Scientology deals with people, disconnection. It's just a very sad thing. Anyway.
Same thing happened with my father.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. Let me try and find a new new slide here.
Well, how about we talk about when you got thrown off the ship? No, I'm just joking.
Oh yeah. Well, this is you and Debbie again, huh?
It is, and that is on that same day, and that's Mark and Debbie. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I want to bring up on Liberty. We had Liberty every 2 weeks because we did the rotation, and Liberty used to start at noon on Saturday, all the way through until Monday morning, 9:00.
Yep.
So we had just under 48 hours of Liberty, and a lot of crew would go ashore and they'd go drinking and they'd stay at hotels or just go clubbing all night and come back to the ship and pass out. But it was like you had the weekend pretty much.
Only if your stats were up.
Yeah, but you got to figure it out so that if you're going to take 2 days off, your stats are going to go down that week because you took 2 days off. So, of course, your stats are going to be up in time to take Liberty the following week. That's how I worked it.
Well, I remember missing some Liberties along the way. Yeah. But then I was a screw off,
Okay, so talking about screw up, which one do you want to tell? The chain locker story or the overboard story?
I would say the overboard because that came first.
Okay. So, Mark, hang on one sec, Deanna. Mark, can you pull up the picture of the Apollo that you have in here so we can show where people were thrown from on the ship?
Yeah, hold on one sec. It's in a different slide, which I will pull up right now.
So just to establish the scene here, this is the Apollo, which used to be black and was called the Royal Scotsman during the days that Deanna was on board. And if you look at the back of the ship, you'll see that small little red deck. That is the aft well deck. And it had doors that would open up, and that is where people were thrown from when they got thrown overboard. All right, Deanna, over to you.
Yeah, boy, all this lead up to probably not a big thing here, but no, you're working until 3:00 in the morning, 2:00 in the morning, 3:00 in the morning. And then you got to go visit your friend Nancy Tidman in Mimeo so you can unwind, and then you go to sleep. But then you have to be up at, I think it was 7 on the aft well deck for muster.
Yep.
And you'd get the wake up call. But if you rolled over and went back to sleep because you'd only been sleeping a few hours, I missed the morning muster. And so the following day, over the side I went for missing the muster.
You didn't do anything. I thought it'd be exciting.
I was just sleeping like a good 16-year-old should, right?
But
right,
you could swim.
Right.
You could swim, right?
And that's what wasn't traumatic for me. I was born and raised in Las Vegas. You learned to swim when you were, itty bitty. So I didn't realize the junk that was in the water there, but at the time. But so it wasn't a big event for me. However, I did witness, because during that muster at 7 a.m., especially when the Class 8 course was going on, all the auditors that had the flubs that got overboarded and blindfolded and all that good stuff, my mom, Alan, those were significant to me. I know there was lots of other people that went overboard too. Yeah. So, but that was at 7 a.m. muster on the deck. So.
Yeah. Well, I went overboard.
You
I don't
did?
remember what yes, and I don't remember what I did, but I was a messenger at the time, and it was in the orders of the day, signed by my sister, ordering me overboard. But Hubbard would have told her to do it.
Yeah,
she wouldn't have done it otherwise. But my mom went overboard for not getting a well-done session on the Class 8 course. And I remember Max Goodman, he wore a toupee. I remember Max going overboard and coming up and fishing for his toupee because, you know, everyone now saw that he was bald. And then Amos, the Avon River used to be docked behind us. And Amos Jessup was the captain of the Avon at the time. And he used to watch out for anybody that couldn't swim that got caught in the current and would pull them out from his boat. And I remember Leon Steinberg, he couldn't swim. So they put a life vest on him and threw him out of the cattle door. Now, you can't see the cattle door on this picture, but it was about midships. And you see the rubbing strake there. It opened up at that level. So it was maybe a 3-foot drop. And,
so you're talking about that line across the bottom.
Yeah, that line across the bottom. Yeah. So they'd open up the cattle door and I watched Leon being thrown out, and with the life vest on, that thing kind of, it stays above water, but your whole body's still going down. And I remember that thing just jerking his head as he hit the water. But they quickly grabbed him and got him back in. But yeah,
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
No, I want to ask 2 questions. When you jump, when they throw you over, back at the aft well deck, how is that 20, 30 feet to the water from up there, do you think?
Yeah. It's
25?
2 stories because it's the tween decks and no, it's the level with B decks. So it's probably about 15, 20.
Is it 15? Yeah. Well.
Yeah,
so
probably
it's about the height of a high dive diving board, maybe a little bit higher. But people can relate to that. Yeah.
But being thrown out is different to jumping. I mean, I used to jump off.
Yeah.
I used to jump off or dive off of that all the time. Or my brother would go to the top of the bridge and he would do a kamikaze dive. He's coming flat down like this from the bridge wing. And then just as he hits the water, he'd just tip like this and go in. And he and Captain Bill. Well, we had a rope ladder, and it was funny trying to get up a rope ladder hanging straight down. It would swing every which way, and you really had to work yourself to get up. And there were people who they didn't have the arm strength to go up those ladders.
Yeah.
And so some would go around to the dock and try and climb up onto the camels, these big tires, and some managed to get up there. Someone else might jump in and give them a push up. It was all sorts of different things. But you got to remember having 2 people pick up your arms and your legs and swing you and throw you out is very different to being in control of yourself going out.
Right. Yeah. So you're not in control. They're holding your body and swinging you. And that's terrible.
Yes.
Now I have another question for you. Would the rest of the crew have to sit there or stand there at the rail and watch the people go
at
overboard?
Attention?
Attention. Yep. It was muster time, and they would call people's name out, and they would come forward and okay.
You didn't know if your name was on the list.
And the master at arms would say, commit your sins and errors to the deep and hope you arise a better Thetan. And then they pick you up and throw you over. And even worse is the locals knew that at that time we were doing overboards. And there's little fishermen in little boats who would row out there and line themselves up to watch our stupidity.
It's funny. I was just thinking about this. I mean, it's almost like, in a way, it's to control the staff, but also it's to humiliate them in front of their peers and the other staff members.
So let me tell you. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, because Miscavige, when we were, They didn't overboard when I was, at the international base, but Miscavige towards the end would call people up and have them stand in front of the entire crew and just humiliate them by reading whatever, confessions they'd gotten off in their session about whatever sexual thing or this or that, and make them stand in front of the 600 crew and just humiliate the crap out of them. And it just was another way to control the crew. And then I heard after we left Janis, he put back in doing overboarding into the little lake that we had there at the property, and then into the swimming pool. People in their uniforms.
He did that before we left, because I remember, I think it was Jackson standing in front of Massacre Canyon Inn as we were all going to dinner, and he's standing there totally soaking wet, having been thrown in the lake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Deanna, you were going to say something?
I was. So speaking of humiliating and punishment, with that picture, you can see the forward mast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you see like a little round white object.
Oh, yeah, the crow's nest.
Yeah. Yeah. So Neville Chamberlain tells a story of my mother being forced to go up that ladder. And the ladder, you got to remember, is facing forward. So you climb this way up that ladder to the crow's nest. And the crow's nest is, I don't know, maybe it holds a body standing up. That's about it. So it's maybe 4 feet, maybe 3.5, 4 feet high. And you can just stand in there. It was for a man to stand watch up there. And my mother, who was 48 years old, overweight, out of shape woman, because she flubbed a session, was made to start climbing up that mast to sleep the night standing up in that. Anyway, Neville says that he intervened and told LRH not to do it. I wasn't there. I always had this memory that I was there, but I wasn't. Once I heard Neville's telling of the tale, but I do remember going the next day, and a bunch of, it may have been Nancy Tidman and Suzette and myself, and we as young kids climbed up that. And that's how I know how big it is. Anyway, humiliating for my mother at the age of 48, 49 years old, made to do that. Yeah.
Right. Well, I have a story of myself where we had to, as messengers on duty, we always sat outside of Hubbard's office. And we read novels or just sat there. So he decided we all had to get the Scientology dictionary, and we had to learn the words starting from A equals A and learn it verbatim. And the one who came in last had to go spend the night in the crow's nest. So I did not win the contest. I came in last. And I can still remember A equals A equals A. Anything equals anything equals anything. This is the way the reactive mind works. But anyway, I didn't remember enough verbatim to not have the penalty. So I had to go up there and spend the night. And I remember taking a pillow and a blanket up there with me. And luckily I was 12 years old that I could at least squat in there, not have to stand. I was much smaller than your mother, that I was able to spend the night. It was a damn cold night. But
and maybe we snuck snacks up to you. I'm wondering, because I just have a memory. Yeah. Did somebody give you a little?
I remember, my sister and a bunch of other girls. You were probably one of them.
Yeah, I'm thinking
sneaking stuff up to me. Yeah. But it was interesting, because years later, when I was 17, I took my first leave of absence, and I went to Phoenix where my dad was, and I hadn't seen my dad in 5 years, from the age of 12 to 17. And I'm standing on the stage because he's asking me to talk to all his mission staff in public, and my sister's there. And he brings up to me, oh, do you want to tell them about the time you had to spend the night in the crow's nest? And I'm like, how did he even hear of this? I hadn't seen him in 5 years. Someone told him, and I just, no, I don't want to talk about it. But it was like, yeah, try and shame somebody, you know?
It's interesting how he would know something. How did he find out?
I have no idea.
You know, there's a lot of gossip that goes on with auditors and their PCs. I always found that so repulsive. I don't know how it worked, maybe in the orgs, but there was always gossip. Oh, in an auditing session, this person revealed this, and they would spread it. I don't. Yeah. Did that happen for you?
Yeah. It did happen.
Yeah.
And especially in Miscavige's days, it was big on executives, case supervising, and finding out different things from people's sessions and talking about it, where it wasn't supposed to happen, but it did.
When they say it's confidential and it's not, I mean, I know stories about celebrities, because we were in Las Vegas and Lake Tahoe and Reno, and my mother would audit, you know, people that were connected to celebrities. I know stuff about celebrities that I shouldn't know.
Right.
Well, you know, when Scientology was banned in Victoria and a whole inquiry was done, one of the reasons they banned it was because PC folder information could be used as blackmail.
Yeah.
And that was why they banned it in Scientology in Victoria.
And they still do it to this day. I mean, you know,
Yes.
It's confidential in a court case. We're not going to give it to you if you're suing Scientology because it's confidential. But if we want to,
we'll talk about it.
But if we want to use it to fair game you or to go against you, oh yeah, it's fair game. Yeah, we can do whatever we want. You know. I was going to show one of the picture we showed last time. This is you. You're in this picture here on the Royal Scotsman, all the way down to the right. Isn't that you, Deanna?
Me next to Suzette. Hi, Suzette.
Yeah. And we went through everybody last time on who they were, but that's Deanna on the Royal Scotsman at the time.
It's my YouTube picture too, so you'll know.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Oh, okay. The one that Mark used, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I did use your photo, though. You sent me the kind of wedding photo for the thing. Did you see that?
No, it wasn't the wedding. It was Christmas morning, and I was in my robe.
Okay.
It was a.
I'm sorry.
It was a pretty sad time in my life. That was in December of 1969. I had just come back from the ship. I can't say my time on the ship was a fun time. I was mainly sad. And
I understand. Well, listen, we've gotten to the
end, but we still have more photos.
We still got more to go.
So, Deanna, we're going to have you back.
It's been so fun.
And we haven't gotten to the chain locker story yet.
Or about how you left. About how you left. Also, how you left Scientology and all that.
Yeah.
People love to hear that, and what your feelings are towards it, and and all that sort of stuff. We'll get into that on the next show that we do.
Well, good. I look forward to it.
So do I.
I know it's been really fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here, Deanna. If to our viewers out there, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like and notification button so that you get alerted the next time we do a show with Deanna. And of course, if you've got any questions or comments about this show or anything, go right down below, comment away, question away. That's how we found out about the Good Place board behind Deanna's head. It was because somebody asked about it. So please ask questions. And then if you'd like to support our channel, go down there in that description. There's a link there. You can buy us a coffee. It's a simple way to donate to the channel, and it helps us out to continue creating these videos. So we really appreciate the support from everybody there. And then you should buy Janis's books that we've been talking about. This is a picture of her at 13 with L. Ron Hubbard, and she goes into detail of a lot of these stories, including the one in the crow's nest. And then, of course, she's got her book 2 as well. So anyway, you can order those right down below. There's links where you can get autographed copies of these books from Janis. She'll personalize them to you, and we'll send them off to you. So please order Janis's books. They're really, really good. I think you'll enjoy them. Lots of photos in them too.
Yes, lots of photos.
Have you got anything else, Janis or Deanna, before we end the show here?
Oh, I got lots more, but another time perhaps.
We will save that for another time to have fun.
Sounds good.
Deanna, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. And until next time, everybody, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.